Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a fascinating, high-stakes balancing act that played out in the Constitutional Court of South Africa. We're looking at a landmark legal dispute that pits the government's absolute duty to keep patients safe right against the constitutional rights of doctors to practice their profession freely. It's a classic tug of war between regulation and liberty, and the ripple effects of this case really change how everyday healthcare operates. To break down this dense 40-page judgment, here's our roadmap. 1. The bad medicine problem. 2. The doctors fight back. 3. The coupling controversy. 4. Choice versus practice. 5. The pharmacy protection twist. And 6. The final verdict. Let's get into it. Section 1. The bad medicine problem. What sparked the law? Okay, let's dive into this. Every major legal battle has a catalyst, right? So I want you to ask yourself, who actually controls your doctor's medicine cabinet? When your physician hands you a bottle of pills directly from their office, how do you know it's safe? Well, before this law, doctors dispensing medicines was largely unregulated, and the consequences were getting seriously dangerous. The government recorded some truly shocking dispensing practices out there. We're talking about doctors handing out literally expired medicines to patients, stuffing pills into unlabeled or completely improperly labeled bottles, and storing sensitive drugs in totally inappropriate conditions where they could just lose their efficacy. Worst yet, some doctors were actually allowing untrained lay staff to dispense these medications. And get this, there was also a huge conflict of interest going on through a practice known as bonusing. That's where doctors would take free pharmaceutical samples and just sell them to the public for a profit. It was a massive public health crisis. The government basically had to step in with a strict new licensing scheme to clean up the industry. Section 2. The doctors fight back. The legal challenge. Now, what's really interesting here is that whenever you introduce strict new rules to a well-established profession, you're going to get pushback. Enter the Affordable Medicines Trust. This perfectly captures the central tug of war. On one side, the government's goal makes total sense. Ensure safe medicines through a strict licensing scheme. But on the flip side, the doctor's goal is just as fundamental, protecting their constitutional freedom to practice medicine without facing arbitrary, burdensome restrictions. Section 3. The coupling controversy, tying licenses to locations. The doctors weren't just mad about needing a license, they were furious about the specific conditions attached to it. So what exactly is coupling in this legal context, and why did it freak the medical community out so much? Coupling, as defined by Regulation 18 of the new law, is the legal requirement tying a doctor's license to dispense medicines to a specific physical premises. You couldn't just get a general license and hand out pills wherever you wanted. The license was physically linked to one inspected room. And doctors were terrified of this. Why? Because of substitute doctors, known as locum tenens. These are doctors who fill in at various clinics all over the place and don't own their own fixed premises. The doctors argued that this coupling rule would completely destroy the careers of substitute doctors because they had no fixed address to license. Think of it like this. Your medical degree, that's your driving license. It proves you actually know how to drive. But the dispensing license, that's your car registration. It proves the physical vehicle, or in this case, the specific premises, is safe for the public. The court clarified that a substitute doctor doesn't actually need to own the room. They can still legally dispense medicines, provided they're working out of their principal doctor's registered safe premises. Make sense? The safety is tied to the room, not just the person. Section 4. Choice versus practice. The constitutional test. The court had to put this whole requirement to the ultimate constitutional test. Does telling a doctor exactly where they can dispense violate their freedoms? Well, the answer is found in Section 22 of the South African Constitution. Listen to this. Every citizen has the right to choose their trade, occupation, or profession freely. The practice of a trade, occupation, or profession may be regulated by law. This is such a fascinating legal distinction. The Constitution treats choosing a profession very differently from actually practicing a profession. So, the court used this two-step logic to break it down. Step 1, does the law limit someone's choice of profession? If a law flat out stops you from becoming a doctor, the court applies super strict scrutiny because that limits a fundamental freedom. But step 2, does the law just regulate the practice? If it's just dictating the daily how-to of your job, it only requires a rational basis test. Basically, the government just needs a logical, rational reason for the rule. And the court ruled decisively here. Coupling regulates the practice, not the choice. I mean, think about it. Simply requiring a doctor to have a clean, inspected, temperature-controlled room to store pills doesn't stop anyone from choosing to go to medical school. It just tells them how to safely store drugs once they're already practicing. Because it rationally keeps medicines safe for the public, the coupling requirement passed the constitutional test with flying colors.
Section 5, the pharmacy protection twist, a hidden motive.
So the government wins, right? Case closed? Well, not quite. When the justices looked at Subregulation 18.5, they noticed some weirdly specific clauses. This subregulation gave the Director General the power to deny a doctor a dispensing license based on things like the existence of other health facilities nearby, geographic area limitations, the estimated number of healthcare users, and demographic considerations. Wait, what does the number of clinics down on the street have to do with whether your medicine cabinet is a safe temperature?
This is where the doctors presented the smoking gun. They pointed the court right to the government's own national drug policy document, which literally stated, medical practitioners and nurses will not be permitted to dispense drugs except where separate pharmaceutical services are not available. Wow. The government wasn't just trying to make medicine cabinets safe, they were actively trying to stop doctors from dispensing medicine if there was a commercial pharmacy nearby.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this glaring contradiction. The stated law was supposedly all about implementing safety regulations to protect the public from expired and unlabeled drugs. But the hidden motive, using geography and demographics as a complete smokescreen to protect commercial pharmacies from the economic competition of dispensing doctors. The Constitutional Court caught the government red-handed. They ruled that the government was acting ultra-virus, a legal term meaning beyond their power. The health minister had the power to regulate medicine safety, sure, but absolutely no power to enforce a hidden economic agenda protecting pharmacies. Let's move to Section 6, the final verdict, keeping score. With all these complex arguments flying around, how did it actually shake out? Here is the final scorecard from the Constitutional Court. First, the general licensing scheme, upheld. The government totally has a legitimate right to ensure public safety. Second, coupling the license to a specific premises, also upheld. It regulates the practice, not the choice, and keeps drugs safely stored. But third, that sneaky subregulation 18.5 protecting pharmacies struck down entirely as unconstitutional and completely outside the government's power. It really is a remarkably balanced judgment. Oh, and there was one last really vital victory for the doctors. Before reaching the Constitutional Court, a lower high court had actually punished the doctors by ordering them to pay the government's legal costs. The Constitutional Court completely reversed this. They emphasized a massive principle here. Citizens should never be financially ruined just for trying to vindicate their constitutional rights. Forcing the doctors to pay would create this huge chilling effect, basically scaring people away from ever challenging the government. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. As we've seen today, the government's goal of keeping bad medicine away from the public was entirely noble. Yet they smuggled a whole economic agenda right into the fine print. So, if a law has a noble goal, does the government's hidden motive even matter? The Constitutional Court's answer is a resounding yes. Power must always be exercised strictly within its legal limits, no matter how good the intentions are. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and always remember to keep questioning the fine print.